The ink hadn't even dried on the divorce papers, and Marcus was already laughing. He stood in the middle of the courthouse lobby, surrounded by his high-priced lawyers, looking at his ex-wife, Elena, with pure pity. "Face it, Elena," he sneered, his voice echoing off the marble walls. "You were a great housekeeper, but you never belonged in my world. Take the settlement and buy yourself some cats. You're done." He thought he had stripped her of everything, her dignity, her home, her future. But Marcus didn't know that the phone in Eleanor's pocket had just vibrated with a text message that would change the trajectory of the entire city. He didn't know who was waiting outside. He thought he was the shark in the tank until he saw the Leviathan pull up to the curb. The air inside the distinct family court of Lower Manhattan smelled of stale coffee floor wax and the quiet desperation of ending things. Room 304 was no exception. It was a soulless box of beige walls and fluorescent lights that buzzed with a headache-inducing frequency. Elena Vance sat on the left side of the mahogany table, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She wore a simple charcoal dress she had bought 3 years ago, at a profound discount, a stark contrast to the bespoke Italian-cut navy suit her husband Marcus Vance was wearing just 5 feet away. Marcus didn't look at her. He was too busy checking his Rolex Submariner, tapping his foot with the impatient rhythm of a man who felt his time was far too valuable to be wasted on the dismantling of a 10-year marriage. Beside him sat Arthur Sterling of Sterling Davis and Holt, a man whose hourly rate could feed a family of 4 for a month. Marcus had hired the shark of sharks, ensuring that the prenup he had forced Elena to sign a decade ago held up like iron. "Mr. Vance," the judge, a weary woman named Judge Holloway, peered over her spectacles. "Ms. Vance, we are here to finalize the dissolution of marriage. The terms have been agreed upon." "They have your honor," Arthur Sterling said, his voice smooth as aged scotch. He pushed a thick stack of documents toward Eleanor. "My client is being generous considering the circumstances. We are allowing Ms. Vance to keep the 2018 Honda Civic and a one-time spousal support payment of $20,000. No claim to the penthouse, no claim to the stock portfolio, and certainly no claim to the future earnings of Vance Tech." Elena's lawyer, a court-appointed representative named Mr. Henderson, who looked like he hadn't slept in a week, sighed and looked at Elena. "Elena, are you sure you don't want to contest the clause regarding the intellectual property? You did mention you helped him with the initial coding back in—" "No," Eleanor said softly. Her voice was calm, startlingly so. She didn't look broken. She didn't look like a woman who was about to be destitute. She looked like someone who was waiting for a train. "I just want it over Mr. Henderson. I'll sign." Marcus finally turned his head. A smirk played on his lips, that familiar, arrogant tilt of the mouth that used to make Eleanor's heart flutter when they were college students at NYU, eating ramen and dreaming of the future. Now it just made her stomach turn. "Smart choice, El," Marcus whispered, loud enough for the table to hear, but quiet enough to avoid the judge's ire. "Don't drag out the inevitable. You know you can't afford a fight." Eleanor picked up the pen. It was a cheap blue ballpoint. She looked at the document. Dissolution of marriage. It felt heavy, not physically, but spiritually. 10 years. She had supported him when he was a nobody. She had worked 2 jobs at a diner on 4th Street and a library on weekends so he could focus on his vision. She had proofread his pitches, ironed his shirts for investor meetings, and held him when he cried after rejections. And the moment Vance Tech went public and the millions started rolling in, she became a liability. She became the simple wife, who didn't know how to dress for galas, who didn't speak French, who preferred quiet nights to networking events. Then came Jessica, Jessica, the 24-year-old marketing VP, with legs for days and a degree from Wharton. Marcus hadn't even tried to hide it well. The late nights, the lipstick on the collar clichés, all of them. But the cruelty wasn't a cliché. "I've outgrown you, Elena," he had told her 3 months ago, handing her the papers over breakfast. "I need a partner who matches my altitude. You're ground level." Elena's hand didn't shake. She pressed the pen to the paper. Scritch, scratch, Elena Vance. It was done. "Very well." Judge Holloway banged the gavel. The sound rang out like a gunshot. "Divorce granted. You are both free to go." Marcus shot up from his chair instantly, buttoning his jacket. He shook Arthur Sterling's hand vigorously. "Excellent work, Arthur. Worth every penny." He didn't say a word to Elena. He turned and strode toward the heavy oak doors, his leather shoes clicking sharply on the floor. Elena stood up slowly. Mr. Henderson packed his briefcase. "I'm sorry, Elena. If you had just given me more to work with, we could have gotten more alimony." "It's fine, Robert," Elena said, giving him a small, sad smile. "Thank you for your time." She picked up her worn purse. She didn't have the Honda key. She had left the car at the house earlier that morning with the keys in the mailbox. She didn't want it. It was the car he bought her to shut her up about the transmission failing on her old van. She walked toward the doors. The courtroom felt suffocating. She needed air. She needed the sky. As she pushed through the double doors and into the bustling hallway of the courthouse, she saw Marcus waiting by the elevators. He wasn't alone. Jessica was there looking radiant in a white power suit that probably cost more than Eleanor's entire settlement check. Jessica was clinging to Marcus's arm, beaming. Eleanor tried to walk past them, heading for the stairs, but Marcus stepped into her path. "In a rush?" Marcus asked, blocking her way. "Let me pass, Marcus," Elena said, her voice steady. "I just wanted to say no hard feelings." Marcus laughed, though his eyes were cold. "And well, I wanted you to meet the future Mrs. Vance properly." "You know Jessica." Jessica offered a tiny, pitying wave. "Hi, Elena. Sad day, huh? But honestly, it's for the best. Marcus has so much stress right now with the merger. He really needs a home environment that stimulates him intellectually." The insult was precise and practiced. Elena looked at Jessica, then at Marcus. "Congratulations," she said simply. "I hope you both get exactly what you deserve." "Oh, we will." Marcus grinned. "We're flying to the Maldives tonight to celebrate. First class, actually private." He leaned in closer, dropping his voice to a mock whisper. "Look, Elle, I know 20 grand isn't much. If you need a reference for a housekeeping job, let me know. We might need a maid for the Hamptons house. You always were good at scrubbing floors." Jessica giggled, covering her mouth with a manicured hand. Elena felt a heat rise in her chest, but she tamped it down. Not here, she told herself. Not now. "Goodbye, Marcus," Elena said, stepping around him. "Take the stairs," Marcus called after her as she opened the stairwell door. "Good exercise. You've put on a few pounds lately anyway." The heavy door slammed shut, cutting off their laughter. Elena stood in the quiet, concrete stairwell for a moment, gripping the railing. She took a deep breath, counting to 10. 1, 2, 3. She pulled her phone from her pocket. There was a single text message received 2 minutes ago. Sender JT. Message: "I'm 30 seconds away. Eat her to the curb is 1200 p.m. exactly. Keep your head up." Elena stared at the screen. A genuine smile, the first in months, touched her lips. She put the phone away and began to descend the stairs. She wasn't walking down into defeat. She was walking down into the rest of her life. The exterior of the courthouse was a chaotic symphony of New York City traffic. Yellow cabs honked bike messengers, wove through gaps in the cars, and the midday sun beat down on the grey pavement. Elena walked out of the main revolving doors, blinking against the brightness. The humidity hit her instantly. She walked down the wide stone steps, intending to wait on the sidewalk near the corner where it was less crowded. But Marcus wasn't done. He and Jessica had taken the elevator and beaten her to the entrance. They were standing near the curb, waiting for their ride. Marcus's company car, a sleek black Mercedes S-Class, was usually driven by his personal driver, but today he seemed to be waiting for something else. When he saw Elena emerge, he nudged Jessica. "Elena!" he shouted over the noise of a passing bus. "Hey, Elena!" She stopped on the bottom step. She couldn't just run away. That would look weak. She turned to face him. "What is it, Marcus?" He walked over to her, pulling a money clip from his pocket. He peeled off a $100 bill. "Here," he said, extending the bill toward her. "For a cab. I don't want you taking the subway and getting mugged. It would look bad for PR if my ex-wife was found in a gutter somewhere." Passers-by were starting to look. A man in a suit watched curiously. A woman pushing a stroller slowed down. Marcus Vance was a minor celebrity in the city's tech scene. People recognized him. He was playing to the audience. He wanted to be the benevolent billionaire, the generous victor helping the poor, discarded woman. "I don't need your money, Marcus," Elena said, keeping her hands at her sides. "Don't be proud," Jessica chimed in, stepping up beside him. Her heels clicked on the pavement. "Take it. It's a long walk to wherever you're staying now. A shelter." "I'm staying at a hotel." Elena lied. She wasn't, but she wouldn't give them the satisfaction. "A motel, maybe." Marcus laughed. He tried to tuck the bill into the pocket of her blazer. Elena swatted his hand away. "Don't touch me." Marcus recoiled, his face hardening. "Fine. Have it your way. Walk. Crawl. I don't care. Just remember you walked away from the best thing that ever happened to you. You're nothing without me, Elena. You're a zero, a background character in my movie." "Is that so?" Elena asked. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steel. "Look at you." Marcus gestured at her cheap dress. "You look tired. You look old. You held me back for years, Elena. I should have done this 5 years ago." "Maybe you should have," Elena said. "Then I wouldn't have wasted 5 years fixing your mistakes." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "What mistakes? I built Vance Tech." "You built the interface," Elena said quietly. "I wrote the back-end algorithm that stabilized the platform when it crashed in 2019. I ghost-wrote the pitch deck that got you the Sequoia funding. I managed the books when you were gambling away the seed money in Vegas." Marcus's face turned red. "You're delusional. You were a secretary with a ring." "Believe what you want," Elena said. She looked at her watch. 12. 0 p.m. exactly. "Whatever," Marcus scoffed. "Go on, get out of here. My ride is coming. A limousine, by the way. We're going to Le Bernardin for lunch." He turned his back on her, putting his arm around Jessica. "Ignore her, babe. She's just bitter." "Totally," Jessica cooed. "Let's just enjoy our freedom." The sound of a low, powerful engine rumble cut through the city noise. It wasn't the high-pitched whine of a taxi or the rattle of a truck. It was a deep, guttural growl that vibrated in the chest. Traffic seemed to part. Coming down the street, moving with the slow, predatory grace of a panther, was a car that didn't belong in midday traffic. It was a hyper-luxury vehicle, a custom, matte black Rolls-Royce Phantom, but not just any Phantom. It had diplomatic flags on the fenders, small blue and gold crests that signaled immense sovereign power. Flanking it were 2 black Cadillac Escalades with tinted windows, the kind used by Secret Service or private security for the ultra-elite. Marcus stopped. He loved cars. He knew cars. "Whoa," he murmured. "Check that out. That's a custom extended wheelbase. That's..." That's serious money, like Saudi prince money. Jessica's eyes went wide. Is it a celebrity? The convoy slowed down. Marcus straightened his tie. Maybe it's an investor, or Elon. I should see if I can make eye contact. He took a step forward, assuming the center of attention as he always did. He put on his best, networking smile, ready to wave or nod at whoever was inside. The convoy pulled up right in front of the courthouse steps, right in front of Marcus. They're stopping here, Marcus whispered excitedly to Jessica. This is it. Someone knows I'm here. Maybe the press tipped them off about the divorce, and they want to do business now that I'm unattached. The lead Escalade's doors flew open. 4 men in tactical suits with earpieces jumped out. They didn't look like chauffeurs. They looked like soldiers. They moved with terrifying efficiency, creating a perimeter on the sidewalk. "Step back, please," one of the security men said to Marcus, pushing him firmly away from the curb. "Hey, easy," Marcus protested, dusting off his suit. "Do you know who I am? I'm Marcus Vance, CEO of Vance Tech." The guard didn't even blink. "Back. Now." Marcus stumbled back, humiliated, in front of Jessica. Then the rear door of the Rolls-Royce opened. A driver in a pristine white uniform stepped out, but he didn't open the passenger door. He stood at attention. From the back seat, a man emerged. He was tall, well over 6'2", wearing a suit that made Marcus's bespoke outfit look like it came from a rack at a discount store. It was a charcoal 3-piece, perfectly tailored to a muscular frame. He wore sunglasses, even though the sun was behind clouds now. His hair was dark, swept back, silvering slightly at the temples. The atmosphere on the street changed. The air felt heavier. This man radiated power. Not the loud, bragging power Marcus had, but the quiet, terrifying power of a man who owned nations. Marcus's jaw dropped. He recognized the man. Everyone in the business world recognized him, though he was rarely seen in public. It was Julian Thorne, the owner of Thorne Global, the man who owned shipping line satellite networks and half the real estate in London and Dubai. A man whose net worth wasn't billions. It was in the hundreds of billions. He was a ghost, a myth. He never gave interviews. He never attended galas. "Holy," Marcus whispered. "It's Julian Thorne. Jessica, look. It's Julian Thorne." Marcus's mind raced. Why is he here? Did he hear about my software? Is he here to acquire Vance Tech? If I play this right, I'm the richest man in New York. Marcus puffed out his chest. He prepared to extend his hand. "Mr. Thorne, what an honor. I'm Marcus Vance. Julian Thorne didn't even look at him. He walked right past Marcus as if he were a ghost. He walked past Jessica, who was trembling with excitement. Julian walked straight to the woman standing alone on the bottom step, clutching a worn purse. He stopped in front of Eleanor. The silence on the street was deafening. Julian took off his sunglasses, revealing piercing, icy blue eyes that softened instantly when they met hers. "Eleanor," he said. His voice was deep, rich, and filled with an emotion that shocked the onlookers. It was reverence. "Hello, Julian," Elena said softly. Julian bowed his head slightly, a gesture of submission from a king to a queen. He extended his hand. "I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic on the bridge was difficult." "You're right on time," she replied. Julian took her hand, and then, to the absolute horror of Marcus and Jessica, he lifted it to his lips and kissed her knuckles. "Are you ready to go home?" Julian asked. "I am." Elena nodded. "Wait!" Marcus screamed. The shock broke. "Wait a damn minute!" He ran forward, dodging the security guard's arm. "Elena, you know Julian Thorne. How you're just a housewife." Julian turned slowly. The warmth vanished from his face, replaced by a look of such frigid contempt that Marcus actually took a step back. "Mr. Vance, I presume," Julian said. The word sounded like a death sentence. Yes, I'm Marcus. I own Vance Tech. We just divorced. I don't understand." "There is a great deal you don't understand," Julian said coldly. "And frankly, you do not have the security clearance to understand it." "Security clearance?" Marcus stammered. "What are you talking about? Elena is nobody." Julian laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. "Nobody, you fool." He looked at Elena, then back at Marcus. "You just divorced the only reason your company hasn't been crushed by regulatory committees in Washington for the last 5 years. You just divorced the woman who invented the encryption protocol my satellites use." Marcus blinked. "What? And more importantly..." Julian stepped closer, towering over Marcus. "You just insulted the woman I have been in love with for 15 years. The heavy door of the Rolls-Royce clicked shut, severing the connection to the noisy, humid street outside. The silence inside was absolute, save for the hum of the air conditioning, which smelled faintly of leather and sandalwood. As the car pulled away, leaving a stunned Marcus and Jessica shrinking in the rearview mirror, Eleanor let out a breath she felt she had been holding for 10 years. Her shoulders slumped. The mask of stoic indifference she had worn in the courtroom cracked, revealing a profound exhaustion. Julian didn't speak immediately. He reached into a chilled compartment between the seats and pulled out a bottle of sparkling water, not champagne. He remembered. She hated drinking before sunset. He poured a glass and handed it to her. "You're shaking," he said, his voice gentle. "It's the adrenaline," Elena whispered, taking the glass. Her hand trembled, the water rippling. "It's finally over. I can't believe I actually signed it." "You did perfectly," Julian said. He watched her with an intensity that made the spacious cabin feel intimate. "You gave him everything he asked for. You played the part of the defeated wife until the very last second. Arthur Sterling will be bragging about that settlement for months." "He called me a housekeeper, Julian." Elena let out a dry, bitter laugh. "He told me I was good at scrubbing floors." Julian's jaw tightened, a muscle feathering in his cheek. The temperature in the car seemed to drop. He is a small man with a small mind. He saw a housekeeper because he lacks the capacity to see a queen. But his blindness was necessary. It kept you safe. Elena looked out the tinted window as the city skyline blurred past. "Safe," she repeated. "Is it really safe now? Is the syndicate truly gone?" "Decimated," Julian confirmed. "While you were signing those divorce papers, my team in Zurich finalized the acquisition of the last shell company hunting you. The people who threatened your life 15 years ago, the ones who wanted the Omega source code you wrote, are either in federal prison or bankrupt. You don't have to hide behind a mediocre man like Marcus Vance anymore." This was the truth that no one knew, the twist that had defined Elena's life. 15 years ago, Elena wasn't just a student. She was a prodigy known in the dark corners of the internet as Cypher. She had written a piece of code, the Omega source, that could bypass any banking encryption in the world. When criminal organizations found out who she was, they hunted her. She needed a cover. She needed to be boring. She needed to be invisible. So she found Marcus Vance, a loud, ambitious, but ultimately average computer science student. She dated him, married him, and built his company from the shadows using him as a front. She made him rich so she could be the trophy wife, a role so cliché that no assassin would ever look twice at her. She had dimmed her light to keep from being extinguished. "I wasted a decade of my life, Julian," Elena said, tears finally pricking her eyes. "I cooked his meals, I washed his clothes. I listened to him belittle me in front of his friends. I let him think he was the genius. You didn't waste it. Julian reached out, covering her hand with his. His skin was warm, rougher than Marcus's manicured hands. You survived, and you built an empire while you were at it. Vance Tech is your code, every line of it. Elena sat up straighter, wiping her eyes. The sadness was being replaced by something else. A cold, sharp resolve. Not for long, she said. Julian smiled a wicked, knowing grin. He reached for a sleek silver tablet resting on the seat. He tapped the screen and handed it to her. The kill switch, he asked. Elena looked at the screen. It displayed a complex network map of Vance Tech's server architecture. Green lights pulsed rhythmically, representing the flow of billions of dollars of data. At the center of the web was a locking mechanism she had installed 5 years ago. A dead man's switch. It required a daily biometric authentication, her fingerprint, which she had disguised as a system diagnostic. She ran from her laptop every morning while Marcus was at the gym. She hadn't run it today. The decay rate is set to 4 hours, Elena said, her voice turning technical, her eyes scanning the data. Without the authentication key, the core algorithm will assume the system has been compromised by hackers. It will begin to cannibalize itself to protect the data. It looks like a glitch at first, then a crash, then a total wipe. Marcus is on his way to the airport, Julian noted. He'll be in the air when it hits. No. Elena shook her head. He's too vain. He won't leave until he checks the stock price one last time to gloat. He's going to the office. She looked at the digital button on the screen. It was marked, Execute Protocol Omega. Do you want to wait? Julian asked. No, Elena said. He wanted a clean break. Let's give him a clean slate. She pressed the button. On the screen, the green lights turned amber. Then slowly, one by one, they began to bleed red. Marcus Vance felt like a king as he burst through the glass doors of Vance Tech's headquarters. The lobby was a monument to his ego-minimalist white, with a massive portrait of himself hanging behind the reception desk. He dragged Jessica by the hand, ignoring the confused looks of the receptionists. "Cancel the car to the airport," Marcus shouted at his assistant, who scrambled to keep up with him. "Push the flight back 2 hours. I want to check the Q3 projections before we leave, and get a press release ready." "A press release, sir?" the assistant asked, breathless. "Yes, Marcus Vance, single again. Spin it as a new era of innovation. The dead weight is gone. The visionary is unleashed." He marched into the elevator, kissing Jessica deeply as the doors closed. "You're going to love the view from the office, babe. It's the highest point in the city." "You're so bad," Jessica giggled, checking her reflection in the elevator's brass paneling. "Do you think Elena is crying right now?" "Who cares?" Marcus laughed. "She's probably spending that 20 grand on cat food." The elevator dinged at the top floor, the executive suite. But as the doors opened, Marcus didn't step into the usual hushed reverence of his company. He stepped into chaos. Red emergency lights were flashing silently on the ceiling. People were running, actual running down the hallways. Papers were scattered on the floor. "What is this?" Marcus barked, stepping out. "Why is everyone running stop?" He grabbed a passing junior developer by the arm. The kid looked terrified, sweating profusely. "Mr. Vance, thank God you're here," the kid stammered. "It's the core. It's melting." "Don't be dramatic." Marcus shoved him aside. "Code doesn't melt." He stormed toward the main server control room, known as the Brain. He threw the doors open. Inside, his chief technology officer, Kevin, was standing on a table screaming orders at 20 programmers who were typing furiously. The massive wall of screens that usually displayed steady streams of stock data and user traffic was glitching. Static tore through the images. Error messages popped up like weeds. Error 404. Kernel missing. Fatal exception. Unauthorized user. "Kevin!" Marcus roared. "Turn off the damn alarm, I'm trying to have a moment here." Kevin spun around. He looked like he had seen a ghost. His tie was undone, his hair wild. "Marcus, you need to log in." "Now!" Kevin yelled. "Log in, I'm always logged in," Marcus said, confused. "What's going on?" "The system rejected your admin credentials 5 minutes ago," Kevin said, jumping down from the table. "It kicked everyone out. It's treating the entire Vance Tech infrastructure as a hostile entity. It's deleting the databases, Marcus. Customer data payment history, the source code, it's eating it all." "That's impossible," Marcus said, his face paling. "The backup servers." "The backups are gone. The command came from inside the house. It's a root-level override." Marcus froze. "Root level only. I have root level." "No," Kevin said, shaking his head frantically. "You have level 1 admin. The root level belongs to the architect." "I am the architect," Marcus screamed. "I built this company." Kevin paused, looking at his boss with a sudden, dawning realization. "Marcus, be serious. You wrote the GUI in 2018. You haven't touched the back end in 7 years. The daily patch, the stabilization protocol. Who runs that?" Marcus blinked. "The what?" "The stabilization protocol." Kevin screamed. "The update that happens every morning at 9 a.m. The system logs show it was missed today. Who usually runs it?" Marcus's mind flashed back to the mornings. He would be drinking his kale smoothie, getting ready for the gym. Elena would be at the kitchen table with her beat-up laptop. "Just checking emails, honey," she would say. "Just paying the bills," she would say. "Elena," Marcus whispered. The name tasted like ash. "Call her," Kevin pleaded. "If she has the keys, get her to input the code. We have maybe 10 minutes before the stock crashes to 0. Marcus fumbled for his phone. His hands were shaking so hard, he dropped it twice. Jessica stood in the corner looking horrified, clutching her Chanel bag. She won't answer," Marcus stammered. We had a fight." "Fix it," Kevin yelled. Marcus dialed. It went straight to voicemail. "You've reached Elena. I'm currently unavailable. If this is Marcus, please refer to my attorney." "Damn it!" Marcus hurled the phone at the wall. It shattered. "Do something," Jessica shrieked. "My shares, you gave me stock options last week." "Shut up," Marcus yelled at her. Suddenly the wall of screens went black. The red light stopped flashing. The room plunged into darkness, lit only by the grey daylight coming from the windows. A single line of green text appeared on the center monitor. It was huge, pixelated text. "System purged. License revoked. Reason violation of contract terms. Irreconcilable differences." "No," Marcus whimpered. He fell to his knees. "No, no, no." "It's gone," Kevin whispered. "The intellectual property, the algorithms, it's all gone. It's just empty hardware now." On the screen, a final message appeared. "Goodbye, Marcus. Enjoy the silence." Meanwhile, at 30,000 feet, the silence was luxurious. Elena sat in a white leather swivel chair aboard Julian Thorne's private Gulfstream G650. She had showered in the plane's bathroom and changed. Gone was the charcoal dress from the discount rack. Gone were the sensible flats. She wore a cream-colored silk blouse and tailored black trousers that elongated her legs. On her feet were red-soled stilettos. Her hair, usually pulled back in a messy bun, fell in loose, glossy waves over her shoulders. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman worth billions. Julian walked out of the cockpit area, holding 2 crystal flutes of vintage Dom Perignon. The pilot just received word. Julian said, a smirk playing on his lips. Vance Tech shares just triggered a circuit breaker on the NYSE. Trading has been halted. The stock dropped 60% in 8 minutes. Elena took the champagne. She didn't smile, she just nodded. He built his house on sand. I just took away the shovel. There is more, Julian said, sitting opposite her. Now that you are free, and now that Cypher is officially retired, I have a proposition. I'm not looking for a job, Julian. I have enough money stashed in offshore accounts to buy an island. I don't want to offer you a job, Julian said. His demeanor shifted. The playfulness vanished, replaced by business. I want to offer you a partnership. He placed a black folder on the table between them. Thorn Global is launching a new initiative, artificial intelligence defense systems for the Pentagon. We have the hardware. We have the government contracts. But we lack the mind. We lack the soul of the machine. Elena ran her finger over the folder. And you want me to build it? I want you to own it, Julian corrected. 50-50 partners, your name on the door. No more hiding. No more Mrs. Vance. The world needs to know who Eleanor truly is. Eleanor looked at him. For 15 years she had lived in fear. Fear of the syndicate, fear of being found, fear of her own potential. Marcus had been her cage, but he had also been her shield. Now the shield was gone, but so was the cage. And what about us? Elena asked, her voice dropping lower. You said you waited 15 years. Was that just for business? Julian leaned forward. The air in the cabin crackled. Elena, he said softly, I built Thorn Global for one reason. To have enough power to protect you when you finally decided to come home. The business is the excuse. You are the mission. Elena felt a blush rise to her cheeks, a feeling she hadn't had since she was 20. Okay, she said, picking up the glass. I'm in. But on one condition. Anything. We buy Vance Tech, she said. Julian raised an eyebrow. You want that empty shell? It's worthless now. Exactly. Elena smiled, and it was a smile that would have terrified Marcus Vance. I want to buy it for pennies on the dollar. I want the building. I want the logo. And I want to turn his executive suite into the janitor's closet for our new company. Julian threw his head back and laughed, a rich, booming sound. He clinked his glass against hers. Done, he said. But just as the glasses touched, the plane's intercom buzzed. Mr. Thorne, the pilot's voice was tense. I'm sorry to interrupt, sir, but we have a situation. What is it? Julian asked, annoyed. We have 2 F-16 fighter jets flanking us, sir. They are demanding we land immediately at Dulles International. They say there is a warrant for the arrest of a passenger on board. Elena froze. The glass stopped halfway to her lips. Which passenger? Julian demanded. Not you, sir, the pilot said. They are asking for Miss Elena Vance. The charge is corporate espionage and treason. Julian looked at Elena. Her face had gone white. Marcus, she whispered. He didn't call the tech support. He called the FBI. He doesn't have the pull for F-16s, Julian said, his eyes narrowing. This isn't Marcus. This is someone else. Someone who saw the code execute and recognized the signature. The twist hadn't ended. The past wasn't dead. It had just woken up. Strap in, Julian commanded, unbuckling his seatbelt and moving toward the cockpit. We aren't landing. The cabin of the Gulfstream, G6050, transformed from a luxury lounge into a war room in seconds. The champagne was forgotten, the bubbles going flat in the crystal flutes. Elena Vance sat strapped into her leather seat, her fingers flying across a retractable keyboard that had deployed from the side table. The exterior cameras of the jet showed the terrifying reality. 2 F-16 Fighting Falcons, grey and lethal, sat off their wingtips. They were close enough that Elena could see the pilots' helmets. "They aren't bluffing, Julian," Elena said, her voice steady, despite the G-force pressing on her chest as the plane banked hard. "They're locking on. If I don't surrender the encryption keys to restore Vance Tech, they will shoot us down over the Atlantic and call it a training accident." Julian Thorne stood in the doorway of the cockpit, a headset over one ear. He looked unbattered, almost energized by the threat. "They want the keys because Marcus sold something he didn't understand," Julian said. "Access the warrant details. Who signed it?" Elena tapped a final command. A heavily redacted document appeared on her screen. She scanned it, her eyes widening. "It's not the FBI," she breathed. "It's the Department of Advanced Defense Projects. The signature is Director Graves." Julian cursed softly. Graves, the butcher of Baghdad. He's the one who contracted Vance Tech. "Marcus." Eleanor whispered the realization, hitting her like a physical blow. He didn't just neglect the company. He sold the back end. "Exactly," Julian said. He thought he was signing a government cloud contract. He saw dollar signs. But what he actually signed was a lease for your Omega source code to be used in autonomous drone targeting systems. When you wiped the servers, you didn't just delete a dating app or a stock portfolio. You blinded half of the US drone fleet in the Eastern Hemisphere. Elena felt sick. For 10 years, she had hidden her genius to stay safe. In one afternoon of petty revenge, she had inadvertently crippled a national defense network because her idiot ex-husband had pawned off her brain as his own. "We have to land," Elena said. "We can't outrun F-16s. "We aren't running," Julian said, his eyes cold steel. "We are relocating the battlefield." He pressed a button on the intercom. "Captain Initiate Protocol Nightshade." "Sir, are you sure?" The pilot's voice cracked. That's an act of war." "Do it!" Suddenly the lights in the cabin flickered and died. The hum of the engines changed pitch. "What is Nightshade?" Elena asked. "Thorne Global owns 60% of the commercial satellites currently orbiting Earth." Julian explained calmly, sitting across from her and buckling in. "Protocol Nightshade doesn't jam the F-16s. That would be illegal. Instead, it sends a massive, concentrated burst of data to their avionics systems, essentially a 'please wait' buffering signal." Outside the window, the F-16s suddenly banked hard to the left braking formation. They were flying blind. "We have 3 minutes before they reboot and find us," Julian said. "We are dropping altitude, fast." The jet pitched forward. Elena gripped the armrests as gravity seemed to vanish. The ocean rushed up to meet them. They leveled off just 500 feet above the water, skimming the waves to stay under the radar horizon. "Where are we going?" Elena gasped. "My estate in the Hamptons is compromised. The city is crawling with feds," Julian said. "We are going to the one place where Director Graves has no jurisdiction. The British consulate's private airfield in Bermuda, no too far." He looked at Elena. "We're going to the lion's den. We're going to land right in front of them. What? If they shoot us down, the data is lost forever," Julian reasoned. "They need you alive. We are going to land at Andrews Air Force Base. We are going to walk out on the tarmac, and we are going to dictate the terms. Julian, they'll arrest me for treason." "No." Julian smiled, a predator baring his teeth. "They'll arrest Marcus, because according to the paperwork he signed, he is the sole architect of the system. If the system fails, it's his negligence. You're just the ex-wife he fired." The plane banked again, turning back toward the coast. "Get ready, Elena," Julian said. "The courtroom was just a rehearsal. This is the real show." The landing at Andrews Air Force Base was not smooth. The Gulf Stream hit the tarmac hard, surrounded instantly by armored Humvees, flashing blue lights, and soldiers with assault rifles drawn. The engines whined down. "Let me do the talking," Julian said, checking his cufflinks. "You just look bored." "Bored?" Elena adjusted her silk blouse. "I'm about to be indicted for cyber-terrorism." "You are Elena Vance. You are the smartest person in any room you enter. Act like it." The cabin door opened. The humidity of Virginia rushed in, smelling of jet fuel and hot asphalt. "Hands on your heads, come out slowly," a voice boomed from a megaphone. Julian stepped out first, looking like he was stepping onto a red carpet. He didn't put his hands up. He buttoned his suit jacket and walked down the stairs. Elena followed her head, held high, her face a mask of icy indifference. Waiting for them at the bottom of the stairs was not just the military police. It was a silver-haired man in a trench coat, Director Graves, and standing nervously next to him was Marcus. Marcus looked disheveled. His tie was crooked, his face sweaty. Jessica was nowhere to be seen. Presumably she had been left behind when the government helicopter scooped Marcus up. "Mr. Thorne," Director Graves stepped forward, his voice gravelly. "You have interfered with a military operation. I could have you buried under the prison for what you did to those jets." "Director Graves," Julian nodded politely. "I merely experienced a navigational error. My avionics are quite sensitive." Graves turned his glare to Eleanor. "And this is the saboteur." "She's the one," Marcus shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Eleanor. "She did it, I told you. She logged into my system and wiped the drive. She's crazy. She's vindictive." Elena stepped onto the tarmac. She looked at Marcus, then at the director. "Saboteur is a strong word, Director," Elena said calmly. "I simply performed a factory reset on my personal property." "Your property?" Marcus laughed hysterically. "Vance Tech is mine. The code is mine. You signed the divorce papers, Eleanor. You have nothing?" Director Graves held up a hand to silence Marcus. He stepped closer to Eleanor, studying her. He was a man trained to spot liars. He saw none of the usual fear. "Mrs. Vance," Graves said, "the software that was deleted controlled the navigation for the Predator B drone fleet. That code is classified top secret. By deleting it, you have committed treason." "I didn't delete your code, Director," Elena said. "I deleted the Vance Tech user interface. If your drone stopped working, it's because the underlying architecture, the Omega source, recognized that the authorized user was no longer present." "I am the authorized user," Marcus screamed. "I am the CEO. You are a front end," Elena said, her voice cutting through the humid air. "You are a graphical interface. You are the pretty icon people click on. But you are not the code." She turned to Graves. "Director, ask him how the load balancing algorithm works. Ask him to recite the kernel syntax for the drone's target acquisition loop." Graves turned to Marcus. "Well, Mr. Vance," Marcus stammered, It's complex. It's proprietary. I don't keep it in my head. I have servers for that." "He doesn't know," Elena said, "because he didn't write it." "I did." Marcus's face turned purple. "She's lying. She's just a housekeeper. She doesn't even have a degree." "I don't need a degree," Elena said. "I have the encryption key." The silence on the tarmac was heavy. Graves looked from Marcus to Elena. He began to see the picture. He had bought a Ferrari engine, but he had bought it from the used car salesman, not the mechanic. "If you wrote it," Graves said to Eleanor, "then you can restore it." "I can." Eleanor nodded. "Then do it, now, or you go to federal prison." Eleanor laughed. It was a soft, dangerous sound. "I don't think so, Director. You see, the divorce papers Marcus was so eager for me to sign, They stated that I have no claim to Vance Tech's assets or future earnings. But the Omega source code— she pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket, a copy of the prenup from 10 years ago, not the divorce decree. According to our original prenuptial agreement, which Marcus insisted on to protect his genius— Elena smiled at Marcus. Any intellectual property created individually by a spouse during the marriage remains their sole property, unless explicitly transferred in writing. I wrote the Omega source on my personal laptop 3 months before we incorporated Vance Tech. It was never transferred. I simply licensed it to the company. For free. She turned to Marcus, whose eyes were bulging. And when you divorced me this morning, Marcus, you terminated the license. Julian stepped forward, closing the trap. Which means, Director Graves, that the United States government has been using pirated software for the last 5 years, and my client, Ms. Vance, has just issued a DMCA takedown notice. Marcus looked like he was going to vomit. That can't be true. It is, Elena said. And now, Director, we have a problem. You have a broken fleet. Marcus has a bankrupt company, and I have the only copy of the code in my head. What do you want? Graves asked, his posture shifting from aggressive to negotiating. First, Elena pointed at Marcus. I want him arrested. On what grounds? Marcus squeaked. Fraud, Elena said. He signed a government contract claiming he owned the IP. He defrauded the Department of Defense for billions. That's 20 years minimum. Marcus panicked. He grabbed Graves's arm. Director, you can't listen to her. We're friends. We play golf. Graves looked at Marcus with disgust. He brushed Marcus's hand off his trench coat. I don't have friends, Mr. Vance. I have assets and liabilities. You just became a liability. Graves signaled to the MPs. 2 soldiers stepped forward, grabbing Marcus by the arms. No, no! Marcus screamed, struggling as they dragged him away from the jet. Elena, baby. Wait, we can fix this. I still love you. We can get remarried. I'll tear up the papers. Elena watched him being dragged toward a waiting Humvee. She didn't feel triumph. She didn't feel joy. She just felt clean. The burden of carrying him for 10 years was finally gone. Goodbye, Marcus, she whispered. She turned back to Director Graves. Now, Graves said, his eyes narrowing. About that code. We can discuss the licensing fee. Julian interposed, stepping between Eleanor and the director. But it will be under the banner of Thorn Global, and the price just went up. How much? Graves asked. Eleanor looked at Julian, then at the director. 4 billion, Eleanor said calmly. And I want full security clearance. And I want the penthouse apartment Marcus just bought. I think it would make a nice office for my cats. Graves stared at her for a long moment. Then he let out a short, sharp breath. Get in the car, Graves said. We have paperwork to do. 6 months later, the skyline of New York City looked exactly the same, but the power dynamics within it had shifted tectonically. The building formerly known as the Vance Tech Tower had been scrubbed clean. The gaudy, oversized portraits of Marcus were gone. The minimalist white lobby had been warmed with dark woods and living walls of greenery. The sign out front now read, Thorn, Vance Systems. Elena sat in the corner office on the 50th floor, the very office Marcus had bragged about on the day of the divorce. She swiveled her chair to look out at the city. She didn't feel like an imposter anymore. She felt like the architect. The intercom on her desk buzzed. Ms. Vance, her assistant asked. Mr. Thorne is here for the quarterly review, and there is a walk-in appointment who refuses to leave, a Ms. Jessica Miller. Elena raised an eyebrow. Jessica, send Julian in first. Let Jessica wait. The door opened, and Julian walked in. He looked relaxed, wearing a navy sweater, instead of his usual armor of a three-piece suit. He carried 2 coffees. "The numbers are in," Julian said, placing a cup on her desk. "The drone fleet is back online. Director Graves is actually smiling, which is terrifying. And Vance Tech stock, well, what's left of it, has been fully absorbed into our portfolio." "And Marcus?" Elena asked, taking a sip. "Federal Correctional Institution, Otisville," Julian replied. "He's serving year 1 of 15 for wire fraud and falsifying government contracts. I heard he's working in the prison library. Apparently he's having trouble organizing the books. He keeps looking for someone to do it for him." Elena allowed herself a small smile. It's a tragic waste of a mediocre talent. "Speaking of mediocre talent," Julian gestured to the door, "my security team tells me the future Mrs. Vance is in the lobby." "Send her in," Elena said. A moment later, the heavy oak doors opened. Jessica walked in. But this wasn't the Jessica of the courthouse steps. Gone was the white power suit. Gone was the arrogant sneer. She was wearing a modest off-the-rack skirt and blouse. She looked tired. Her roots were showing. Jessica stopped in the middle of the room, clutching her resume. She looked from Julian to Elena, her face flushing red. "Elena?" "Ms. Vance?" Jessica stammered. "Thank you for seeing me." "You didn't give my assistant much choice." "Jessica," Elena said, leaning back in her leather chair. "You're persistent. I'll give you that." I needed to talk to you," Jessica said, her voice trembling. "After Marcus was arrested, the assets were frozen. Everything. The apartment, the cars, the accounts. I was left with nothing. My reputation in the city is ruined. No one will hire the girlfriend of a fraudster." "That is unfortunate," Elena said, her voice devoid of sympathy. "But I fail to see how this is my problem. You wanted to be part of his world. You got it." "I have a degree," Jessica pleaded, stepping forward. "Marketing, communications. I was top of my class at Wharton. I know I was awful to you. I was blinded by the money. But I can work. I'm good at what I do. I'll start at the bottom. Please, I just need a job." Elena looked at Jessica. She saw the desperation. It was the same desperation Elena had felt 10 years ago when she was trying to hide from the syndicate. But there was a difference. Elena had worked her way out with skill. Jessica was trying to beg her way out. Elena stood up. She walked around the desk and stood in front of Jessica. "You said something to me on the courthouse steps," Elena said softly. "You said Marcus needed an environment that stimulated him intellectually. You said I was ground level." Jessica looked down at her shoes. I didn't mean. We have an opening," Elena said. Jessica's head snapped up hope in her eyes. "Really, in marketing?" "No," Elena said. "We need a night shift janitor for the server room. It pays $20 an hour. It involves scrubbing floors. I hear it's good exercise." The silence stretched thick and suffocating. Jessica's face crumbled. The humiliation was absolute. Jessica whispered. "Take it or leave it," Elena said, turning her back and walking toward the window. "But if you take it, know this. If you miss a spot, I'll fire you myself." Jessica stood there for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Then quietly she placed her resume on the desk. "Where do I pick up the uniform?" she asked. "HR is on the 2nd floor," Julian said, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. Jessica turned and walked out, a broken woman in a broken world. When the door closed, Julian let out a low whistle. "Remind me never to cross you, Eleanor." She needed a job, Eleanor shrugged. "I'm a benevolent employer." Julian walked over to her, standing by the window. They looked out at the city, a city of steel and glass, of winners and losers. "So, Julian said, slipping his arm around her waist. The enemy is vanquished. The empire is secured. The past is buried. What now? Cipher. Elena leaned her head against his shoulder. She looked at the reflection of herself in the glass. She didn't see the tired housewife. She didn't see the victim. She saw the woman who had held the keys to the kingdom all along. Now, Elena smiled, watching the sun set over the Hudson River. Now we rewrite the code. She turned to Julian, her eyes sparking with a new dangerous light. I have an idea for the Mars colony project, but it's going to be expensive. Julian laughed, pulling her close. My dear, I have hundreds of billions. Spend it all. And as the city lights flickered on below them, Elena Vance realized that the best revenge wasn't destroying Marcus. It was surpassing him so completely that he became nothing more than a footnote in her biography. Wow, talk about the ultimate power move. Elena didn't just take half. She took the whole game board, from being mocked on the courthouse steps to hiring her ex-husband's mistress as a janitor. That is the definition of karma served cold. It just goes to show you never really know who the smartest person in the room is. Marcus thought he was the king because he wore the suit, but Eleanor was the one writing the rules. What did you guys think of that ending? Was Eleanor too harsh on Jessica, or did she get exactly what she deserved? And if you were, Elena, would you have sold the code to the government for $4 billion, or would you have kept it for yourself? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of revenge and redemption, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. See you in the next video. 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 In the next video.
But now there's factions of people go, oh no, we got it, we don't like it, we've changed our mind, it wasn't going well for us, we don't like free speech anymore. People who want free speech, they only want free speech so they can go around saying awful things, which just isn't true. And even if it was, the good thing about free speech is people can say awful things back. It's a really good system, right? And you can't say anything under the laws of free speech. That's a total misconception. There are loads of caveats to free speech, all of which I agree with, actually. You can't incite violence. Good rule. You can't slander people. Good rule. You can't libel people, you know? Fascinating fact about libel law. You can't libel the dead. So I could stand here and say, Gandhi used to take it up the arse. If I wanted. Which I do. But free speech is the most important human right there is. It's the right from which all other rights come. Without free speech, you couldn't have human rights, you know, and we've got free speech, in theory, in this country, for a little while longer. We can criticise the government, we can criticise the police, but we should give props to a country that allows us to do that, because we're the envy of some countries. In some countries, you criticise the police, you get beaten up, or worse. You criticise the government, you can be thrown in jail for life, you know. So they flee their oppression, quite rightly. You know, so would you. They flee their oppression, and they come here, they go, we want to come to England. We go, why? They go, free speech. We go, come on in, welcome. What are you going to do now? We're going to go on a march. What are you going to say? How shit England is. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you. That is their right. Have a great show, and as I was leaving, I saw one of the other lawyers lean in and show this head lawyer his iPhone, and the head lawyer went, oh yeah. He went, oh sorry Ricky, can you come back a minute? Right, so I'm there, I went, yeah. So he had the phone there. They'd looked up the word minge. I thought I'd gotten away with it, right? So it's now like I'm getting told off, and the head lawyer said, now it says here that the word minge is a derogatory term for female genitalia. I went, well, yeah, it's a slang word for vagina in England. You don't even use it here, do you? He went, no, we don't, but we go around the world, and with due diligence, now we know it's derogatory, we'll have to bleep that word live. I went, don't bleep the word, like, because people at home won't know what I've said. It'll ruin I said, it's literally the punchline. He said, if it's derogatory, I said, well, what word could I use that you wouldn't bleep? And he went, well, you could say vagina. I went, I'm not saying vagina, right? Nothing funny about it. It's so clinical. I was thinking, Judy Dench at home going, why is he talking about my actual vagina, right? I said, minge isn't like that. It's like, it's not so specific, because vagina's so... Where's your vagina? There, right? Where's your minge? There. It's like... Then one of the younger lawyers went, what about box? I went, I'm not fucking saying box, mate, right? So imagine looking at your own box. Right? I said, minge is perfect. I said, people won't know what... If they're American, they won't know it. I said, it's not offensive. It's like... I said, kids use the word in England. Right? They weren't having it. So I said, what about flange? Right? So they looked up the word flange, right? And he went, well, that'd just be confusing, because in America, a flange is a part of a sink unit. I went, oh, well, I said, please let me say minge and don't bleep it. I was really rooting for minge. Right? It was like 12 Angry Men. I go, no one's leaving till I can say minge. Right? And after about 10 minutes, I wore them down. Whatever they said, that won't work. So I was going, please. I said, I'll write them. You won't get any complaints and all this sort of... And eventually, the head lawyer went, OK, you can say minge. I went, and you won't bleep it. He went, no, we won't bleep it. I went, you promise? He went, yes. And I left. I knew they would. And they fucking did, right? So, when I said minge, I pointed. Oh, why do you like London so much, Rick? Because you get a round of applause for not shitting yourself. Right. But that's the next phase now. I reckon it's the next 10 years that I will. But as of now, my arsehole has never let me down. Very underrated, the human arsehole. Everyone goes, oh, the human brain, the greatest computer known to man. All the human liver can regenerate itself. Your arsehole is working 24/7. Even when you're asleep, it's like that. You're not coming out. You're not coming out. You're not coming out. Nope. You're not coming out. And you're not coming in. Because it's like a sewer in there, isn't it? But you've got a lovely little manhole cover. Think of that in real life. Walking along a pavement, it's lovely pavement. If that burst, and you know what's in a sewer, don't you? Piss and shit and cum and dead goldfish, fetuses. In China, just the girl ones. Relax. I'm at that age now as well, because I'm in entertainment. People say, oh, you can have a facelift. I go, no. Have you seen facelifts? They're still just that. Like that. You know what I mean? You go to the doctor, and the doctor goes, do you want to look old or Chinese? You know, it's like... Nothing wrong with looking Chinese, if you're Chinese. If you're not Chinese, it's a bit weird. It's offensive. Why is that allowed? You're not allowed to black up. It was considered a good thing to swap ideas with other cultures, with other nations, to share things with other races, to assimilate. It was the opposite of racist. Now it's racist. Gwen Stefani got in trouble in her last video because she had her blonde hair in dreadlocks. People go, no, black people invented dreadlocks, you can't have them, you're white, that's racist. Jamie Oliver got in trouble when he put out authentic jerk chicken recipe. People go, no, black people invented that, you can't have it, you're white, that's racist. Now, black people, they use the N-word, don't they? We invented that. That's the one, isn't it? That's the one. Listen, I know white people are the worst. I know that. That's why no one likes a fucking white middle-aged man anymore until we need a boiler fixing. Then it's get the bald bloke round now. Critical race theory, have you heard of that? Being taught in schools now, particularly in trendy areas like LA, right? Just like 5-year-old kids and 6-year-old kids. If you haven't heard it, in a nutshell, critical race theory says that all white people are racist. It says that we're born racist and we continue to be racist because we're affording the privilege of a racist society set up by our forefathers, okay? So basically, all white people are racist and there's nothing we can do about it, which is a relief.